Hey, everyone. This is Brandon, your trusted realtor, coming to you with another amazing interview. I have my special guest and friend, Brandon Richardson. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I am doing marvelous. If I was doing any better, I don't think I could stand it. So I'm doing pretty good. Thank you.
Fantastic.
So thank you for joining me on this additional episode of Real Tea and DMV.
I
Um,
brought my tea for you, by the way. That's what's happening here in this cup.
is this what's going on in that
You see how
mug?
hot it is? I feel like this is about to be real smoking hot of an interview. So I had to make sure the tea was hot in this cup as I sip.
All right, fresh out the kettle. That's what I like to see. Before we move any further, make sure that you like and subscribe to the video. Tip, but definitely make sure you subscribe because I'm still on my goal or my campaign to reach 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Looking for your support. So thanks so much. Let's go. All right, guys. One other thing. This is a multi-part interview. The entire interview was an hour or maybe just over an hour. So I broke it up in segments because this conversation was so rich and I wanted to make sure that we were able to discuss and break down each part of it. So make sure you watch all the way through and subscribe and like. I said that earlier because you're definitely going to get a load of information from each one of these segments. All right? Take care. So let's just talk about you. Tell me a little bit about and tell the folks out here in the internet world a little bit about you. Where you from? Where do you live
Yes.
now?
Yes. So hi guys, I'm another Brandon, aka BRich Beauty. For those that don't know me, you can follow me on Instagram at BRich Beauty, BRich_Beauty, and on YouTube at BRich Beauty as well. So I'm around. I'm another Brandon that's good to know about. I'm from born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. Grew up in Atlanta, and I currently live in Miami. ATL. Oh, I'm just joking. But I've lived in Miami for the last 8 years, and I lived in Atlanta for 18 years. So I won't tell you how long I lived in Charleston because you might do the math and try to figure out my age. So I'm going to keep it moving.
All right, that sounds good. So you live in Miami currently. How is Miami?
Well, outside of us being on lockdown, it's good. I travel a lot, B. So, for me, this is, I think, in the 8 years that I've lived in Miami, the longest time I've been home. But Miami's good, good weather, have good friends, and, it's diverse enough for the food and the cocktails. So, you know,
Yeah,
catch me at your nearest wine bar.
and yeah, considering that you travel so much, it has to be hyper crazy to just be stuck in one area.
Going a little stir crazy, utilizing this time to, of course, do other things that you never really would spend time doing. But this is one of the times where this is the time that it's making me think like, I need more space. And what does that look like for me once we come out of this quarantine in a sense?
Yeah. And you know what? That's great that's one of the positives I think that'll come out. Like, even though there's a lot of negative, people lose their lives, folks are getting sick, but fortunately lots of people are recovering. But I think in this quarantine, it'll give people the chance to sit down and to kind of calm down and to start to put their life into perspective. And what does life look like for me? I think a lot of times we're moving 1,000 miles a minute and we don't have a moment to ourselves to actually think about ourselves.
Well, because to your point, that 1,000 miles a minute is, oh, I'll do that later, or I'll do this next week, or I'll think about this next month, or add it to my to-do list. And it never really happens because we're still constantly in a cycle of movement that it really, when we do have a moment to kind of like pause for the cause, then you have to prioritize what you're pausing to do. And those smaller things that are still slightly important don't necessarily get the same priority as it should, and it gets pushed further and further on the list, lower.
Let's dive into it. So I want to talk to you about how long have you been wrestling with this decision to buy a home?
Wow. Just between me and all of your friends out there, I've been playing around wrestling with home buying for almost a decade. I know. And I think the biggest piece about that is I've lived in Miami for 8 years. And to really be honest, like, I love my job. Like, I love what I do. I love the art of being on the go. But one of the things about moving to Miami, it's such a transient community and such a transient city. I did not really think I was going to be here this long, to be real kind of honest. I really thought like, oh, I'll be here for 3-4 years. So why really take the time to invest in owning a home where I'm going to be on to the next? And, I blinked and like 8 years later, I'm still here. And so, you have that moment where you're like in quarantine and you're like, I need more space. I want, a backyard. I want to maybe run up and down the stairs, having a house party moment, and not have to worry about neighbors in a sense. And so I think coming into 2020, having a vision of things, and before Rona kind of tried to snatch the vision away, I said, you know what, I'm going into my, 8th year living here. It's time to pull the plug and just buy a house. And whatever is meant to be will be, whether I decide to move or I don't decide to move. But at this point, it's time for me to invest in myself and, finding a place that feels like who I am. So I'm new and brand new to starting this journey. And so, I've kind of been picking your brain and watching your videos to try to get a better understanding, because I really will say like that is part of myself that's a little bit more deficient in terms of understanding the art of home buying and everything that goes into it. Because again, I'm well-rounded, but I can talk to you all day about beauty, but come home buying, I'm like, what? Say what now? So
that ultimately you end up seeing now you're a decade into it and how long have you been in the current apartment that you're in?
I've been in this unit for 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. So
Go ahead.
I was going to say, now can you give us a range of what you pay?
So it started out, well, to answer your question, in the 1600s.
Okay. And so where did it start though? That was going to be my next question.
When did I start paying 1600s?
No. Where did you start? Like when you've been there 3 years, where did the rent start at?
When I got here, the rent was...
What was the number that enticed you to move into the property?
It was in 1400s.
Okay. So in 3 years, you've seen $200 increase or more.
Yeah, pretty much.
Any point in time that they said, no, don't worry about it. Like you Gucci, like there's no increase this year, or has it been an increase every year?
There was an increase the first year that I renewed. The increase was so small. It was all of $30. That was like, okay, let me renew, because it was $30. That's unheard of for an apartment, right? And I'm also factoring in that I have a storage unit that's literally down the hall. That's also into my rent. So that's why I say in the 1600, because really the base of my rent is actually in the 1500s. So it's been a very nice increase over the years that has allowed me to be able to say like, okay, why look for another apartment? Because the amount of money that you spend on moving, because he's not moving no boxes. By the time you spend the money on finding a new apartment, down payments, moving expenses, all of those things, it's not worth a $30 increase in your rent. And I like where I live. I like the location. I'm happy,
All right, so we're going to pause really quick and we're going to talk about what we saw in the video, because numbers are important and they matter. Brandon said specifically that the reason that he really deferred buying a property is because, one, he didn't think he was going to be in his location that long. How many of us have made that decision not to buy because we only thought we were going to be in a place for a year or two? And then second, he also saw that his rent increase were really insignificant, especially that first year. And you'll find that that's typically how a lot of landlords or rental companies get you or entice you to stay into a property. Let's look at the numbers. His original rent started out at $1,400. A $30 increase means that was only a 2% increase, which really isn't that bad. So for 12 months, he only paid $17,000 as it relates to rent. We don't know what that second year increase was because we didn't ask, but I just plugged in 1,500. That's a $100 increase, or a 7% increase from the $1,400 where he started. That's $18,000, so an $1,100 increase, nearly $1,200 increase. Now you have what he pays now, or an estimate of what he's paying now, somewhere in the 16s. Assuming it's mid 16s, that's a $250 increase from the original $1,400 rent, which means that that's almost an 18% increase in his rent over a 3-year period. That total amount of rent spent is, for that 3 years is close to $55,000. Over 48 months, if he were to stay and paid $1,650 for 48 months, that'd be nearly $80,000. Now, of course, he's not paying that currently because this number won't be static, and it'll only last for a year, and it'll increase. So proportionally, you'll find that he'll probably end up paying more as a renter as the rent rates continue to rise. Something to think about.